Public records are supposed to be our tool, right? The way we, the people, hold our government accountable. But what happens when getting those records feels impossible? Today, we're diving into a case from Eunice, New Mexico, where one citizen's request for information about a police officer's complaint really put the city's transparency to the test. So our story kicks off where a lot of these do, with a story in the local paper. Back in August of 2025, an article comes out detailing some lawsuits filed by police officers in Eunice. And one of the names mentioned is Officer Jerry Hawkins. Now, reports like this can be just the tip of the iceberg. And for one citizen, it sparked a whole lot more questions than answers. So what was this all about? Well, at the very heart of it was a really serious allegation. Officer Hawkins had filed a formal complaint claiming he was the target of racial discrimination and harassment. We're not just talking about a lawsuit here. This gets to the core integrity of a city's workplace, and more importantly, how it deals with these kinds of critical issues. Okay, so how do you find out what this city is actually doing about something this serious? Well, in New Mexico, there's a powerful tool called the Inspection of Public Records Act, or IPRA. It's a law designed to give you, the public, the right to see what your government is up to. So, a citizen decided to use it to get to the bottom of things. Let's see how that played out. So let's just walk through the timeline real quick. The news story drops on August 7th. A few months later, on November 23rd, the formal records request is filed. The city gives its first response on December 1st, and then its final answer on December 17th. It's a pretty tight timeline, but believe me, a lot went down in those few weeks. Now, this wasn't just some casual question. The records request that was filed was, well, it was exhaustive. They asked for everything. The original complaint, sure, but also any investigation notes, witness statements, who exactly is in charge of handling these things, what their job description is, and what kind of training they've had. They even asked for the city's policies and any DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. They weren't just asking for a piece of paper, they wanted to see the whole machine, top to bottom. All right, so you've got this super detailed request on the table, right? You'd expect a pretty detailed response. But what did the City of Eunice actually hand over? Well, as it turns out, the response was not exactly what was expected. Instead of handing over the specific records about the Hawkins complaint, the city's first response was to send its general personnel policy manual, the standard employee handbook. That's a far cry from the specific investigative files that were requested. Yeah, the person who filed the request was not having it. They shot back an email pretty much immediately saying, hey, this isn't what I asked for. They made it crystal clear that a generic policy manual was totally insufficient and didn't satisfy the request for the actual records. And that leads us to the city's final answer on December 17th. They pulled out a big one, claiming all the documents were personnel records and therefore exempt from disclosure. Now, this exemption is there to protect employee privacy, but let's be real, it can also be a really convenient way for governments to hide from tough questions. In this case, the door to the investigative file was slammed shut. Okay, so the city slammed the door shut on the complaint records. End of story, right? Not so fast, because their response included some other claims we can actually check against public info. And this, my friends, is where it gets really interesting. Just look at this. It's wow. On the left, in their official response, the city claims it doesn't designate specific individuals for handling harassment. But then you pop over to the city's own website, and what do you see? It says plain as day that the city clerk, Candy Brito, serves as human resources and oversees, discrimination issues and grievances. I mean, how do you square that? It looks like a flat-out contradiction. And let's just pause for a second and remember what human resources even means, right? It's literally the department that's supposed to handle employee grievances and make sure the city is following the law when it comes to things like, discrimination. So naming a specific person for that role is a pretty big deal. And then there was this other bombshell in the city's final response. The city clerk officially certified the non-existence of any records about formal DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. For a city dealing with a racial discrimination complaint to officially state they have nothing in place for these issues, that is a massive red flag. But this stuff doesn't just happen on paper, in official letters and emails. The very issues at the core of Officer Hawkins' complaint, they've exploded out into the open, and you can see the real-world fallout.
I mean, just take a look at this. This is an online conversation where people are openly talking about the racial discrimination towards Officer Hawkins. And then you see these awful dismissive comments, like someone accusing him of using the black card. This shows it's not just some internal HR issue. This is still happening out in public, with the officer being racially attacked online.
So when you step back and look at this whole thing, this back and forth over a few documents, it's about something way bigger than one case in one town. This really puts the whole idea of public accountability on trial and shows just how hard it can be to get a straight answer.
Okay, let's just break it down. What's the pattern here? Step 1, a serious complaint gets filed. Step 2, a citizen uses the law to see how it was handled. Step 3, the city blocks access to the files, citing privacy, and says other key records just don't exist. And Step 4, public information seems to directly contradict what the city is saying. So what is the public supposed to think? It's a classic case of an accountability gap.
And look, this story is far from over. This whole situation has apparently been sent up the chain to state oversight bodies. But that's where we come in. The public has to demand transparency. We have to be the ones to save these screenshots, to not let the digital record just disappear. Because if we don't, you can bet nobody else will.
And all of this really boils down to one huge critical question. And it's not just for Eunice, it's for all of us. When the public's right to know clashes with personal privacy, how do we find the balance? More importantly, how can a community make sure that accountability is still even possible?